Let me start
You
recording.
hear?
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get started here. If you have a question for Coach Smith, click the raise hand button and I'll call on you. Okay, our first question is going to come from Jason Elmquist.
John, how you doing?
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. When we talked back in the spring
well.
about the potential of this pushing the start of the season to January, you mentioned the hopefulness of maybe doing it down the road because of the benefit for the academic side here in the fall semester. Have you seen that positive impact? I know it's not a typical semester, but have you actually seen an academic improvement because of the fact that you guys aren't competing yet?
Well, so
Hold on a second. I think
Jason, can you hear me?
it's going in and out, Coach. Hold on one second. I think they're going to join back on the call and try again.
Okay.
Let's see. One second.
I saw a picture the other day.
Okay, they're going to move locations, so hopefully we can get Coach Smith back on shortly.
Okay.
All right, can you hear us now, Reed?
Yes, now you're good.
Nothing like Zoom meetings.
No.
I saw a guy sent me this text message that had the Last Supper on Zoom meeting, and Peter was yelling, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?"
All right, we're going to go back to Jason. You can go ahead.
Well, did you hear my first question?
I didn't hear it, Jason.
Well, when we talked back in the spring, when you mentioned the possibility of the season starting in January, you were hopeful that maybe sometime down the road that might be a more permanent thing, with the emphasis being on academics improving for these athletes, especially those who are first generation college students. In your program, have you seen that benefit so far this year? I know it's not a typical semester, but have you seen signs of that?
I don't know. We'll find out next week when we get the grades. It just feels like you're not in control, like you'd normally be on a normal year. And of course, with things going virtual, sometimes you don't get information on how your students are doing because they're not posting it. There's things like that that's happened a little bit, not that they have to post either, but just, it feels, if you ask your guys, they're all doing great, but until we see everything, we'll find out next week. But I feel good. I'm real hopeful that we had a real good semester. But I tell you what, Jason, you're not in control like a normal year. I thought maybe it would be a little bit easier. It's actually been a lot harder just for the fact that you just don't know how everybody's doing. Are they getting online at 9 o'clock in the morning at home? Those type of things that you're concerned with.
Oh, and speaking of things kind of being out of your control, I know the numbers across the country are kind of surging right now. Is there a worry almost that even though you guys aren't going to be, your guys aren't going to be in classes coming up here, starting basically this week, that actually they're going to have more time on their hands? So there's maybe a little worry of making sure that they stay routine and avoid coming in contact with things?
Well, I mean, we don't have any choice. I mean, we're in a time now where, people could get dismissed from the team. You make these mistakes and bring something that that hits a lot of us. So we've had a tough month. The month of November was tough for our wrestling team, and I really believe, after reviewing everything and looking at everything, there was nobody that really did anything out of hand that caused it. It was just a chain of people making contact, and the good part of that is we're probably over that with those individuals for 5 months. Not that it's a good thing, but it's a good thing as long as their health's fine, and their health, it looks like they're going to come out of this for this month that we've had in November.
Was that maybe a wake up call for some guys, just knowing that even something small can create contact?
I don't think we had anyone do anything wrong, going back to Halloween. Did somebody go to a Halloween party? Did somebody do this? We did a thorough check on all of it. And like I said, I think it was a scenario that just exists. And, when you look at the number of athletes that we have that have tested positive, and the number of athletes that we have on our team, we're still 50%, we're still, doing pretty good and pretty well. And, but last 2 weeks was brutal.
Now, I know back at the start of November, you mentioned obviously there are still a lot of question marks with scheduling. Have you gotten any clarity on what that's going to look like now?
Yeah, we're definitely wrestling 1 day a week. As of right now, you might ask them to be a little quiet since we're in here. Can you hear me fine, Jason? Are you hearing background noise? Okay. It looks like we're going to have 4 home dual meets and be on the road 3 or 4 times. We're hoping to have our first meet on January the 10th. And that's going to be multiple teams, we hope, that comes into Gallagher Arena, where we could get up to 3 matches. The schedule's looking pretty good. We're hoping to wrestle teams like out of conference, possibly Southern Illinois, and Southern Illinois and Tennessee, Missouri is a strong team. Little Rock. So it's going to be a little bit different from the standpoint of how we get matches. We can have a varsity team wrestling and a JV team. If somebody wrestle our JV team, I don't know if you say JV or just an A team, a B team. I don't know if any of these guys want to be called JV, but we could possibly see that on a couple of different occasions. But I think we had our Big 12 conference call this morning, and really the only thing that we're waiting on is if we're going to push the Big 12 up a week. With some of the CDC guidelines that are changing, it looks like we may not have to do that. So we'll just see. We have a schedule we in place right now, and we're just holding off on making sure that the CDC guidelines are what they're going to be. And again, it could change again, but I'm hoping that we have the schedule out by next Monday.
Okay. Now I know back in the spring we talked about Austin at heavyweight, and you mentioned it again in November. How has he progressed from last year? What do you feel that he learned from a year ago that has got it to the point where you're comfortable at least a month out of or 2 months out of having him in potential lineup?
Well, one, he got to wrestle several matches at heavyweight, so he felt the difference in power and the difference in size, and that experience alone does a lot for you. He's still going to be a smaller heavyweight, but he's not going to have any surprises like he had last year. You get to wrestle somebody that's 20 pounds bigger than you, and you learn what not to do. There's certain things you don't do when somebody's 20, 25 pounds bigger than you. And, he's a great competitor. He's a great kid. He's played the role that we wanted. He wants to go down to 197. That's where he wants to wrestle, but he knows that we need him right now at heavyweight. So all I can say is, if you look at his work ethic, you're gonna say, hey, this guy is going to be a performer for us, and I believe that. Let me just go back on that schedule real quick and tell everybody that any dual meet that we have at home, there'll be two teams that will wrestle.
Okay.
So we're trying to get as many, and likely any match that we go on the road, we're going to be wrestling 2 matches. So they gave us 1 day to wrestle. So like when we go to Iowa, we'll wrestle Northern Iowa in the morning, and we'll go up to Iowa State in the evening and wrestle them. And you could see that maybe a couple times. Wouldn't be a couple times, but there's a possibility of we wrestling OU in the morning or afternoon, early afternoon in Norman, and that night wrestling Missouri. So we got some situations that are challenging, but to get the matches in, we got to do it.
So with that, you're still shooting to try to get somewhere in the teens when it comes to duels?
Yeah, I'd like to see 13 to 15 matches, and hopefully that everybody that goes to the Big 12 championships has at least 10. That may not be the case though, if somebody, gets diagnosed with COVID, we all know that they're likely going to be out for 2 of those weekends and lose up to 4 matches.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Your next question is going to come from Dean Rule of the Ocali. Go ahead, Dean.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
Good.
I was just wondering, what do you remember about your recruitment of Travis Whittlake? From my understanding, Coos Bay, Oregon's not necessarily a hotbed for wrestling. So what did that kind of look like?
Well, I would say my trip, couple trips out to see him, were probably some of the most interesting recruiting trips I ever been on. When I went to his house, he literally has a driveway that is about 2 miles long up into the mountains. And when I end up getting up in the mountains, there was this house sitting in these mountains and not another house within probably 10 miles of it. And that's where Travis Whittlake was, in his home. So probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. That's what it made really, I'm like, you sure you want to leave here to go to Oklahoma? you know. But that's what I remember about recruiting Travis is that not always do you get to go to areas where it's beautiful, but where he grew up, pretty special place.
And he's now had a couple of seasons here. What kind of have you seen in his development as a wrestler under your program?
Well, yeah, he's real athletic. He's an athletic guy. I think the big thing is that he needs to use that athletic ability. And sometimes I think he holds back, and his style coming in kind of reduced his ability to show how much athletic ability he had. And so as he's kind of gathered up steam here and finished with a strong Big 12 tournament last year, I'm hoping he'll start off like that, but if he uses his athletic ability, his speed, his agile, he is a great wrestler that's got some really future ahead of him.
Right. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Next question will be Marshall Scott. Go ahead, Marshall.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking the time. AJ had a pretty dominating performance up at the Junior Nationals. He was obviously a highly touted kid coming in, but did you expect him to be that dominant up there?
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at some of the guys he wrestled. I mean, that's what we were hoping for. But remember, the nice thing about his chance to get to wrestle there was that he hadn't wrestled in almost 14 months because of his injury last season. So it was good and it was good to see him be excited about getting on the mat, ready to wrestle. Really was looking forward to it. Of course, we had planned on taking several more up there, and obviously we didn't have the chance. It just gives him the confidence that hey, I didn't drop and go backwards. Over my time here at Oklahoma State since August, I've moved forward from where I was, and that's a confidence boost for him. So in some ways, I was excited about him just being able to get the matches in, but more importantly, and also winning the championship.
What are kind of your expectations for him this year? What would be a successful freshman year for him?
Well, I don't know really if I have to set expectations for him. I mean, if you guys talk to him, this guy thinks he can do everything. So I probably need to bring him down a little bit at times and put some truth in the matter. And but setting him goals and setting his expectations, I probably don't need to do that. I can tell you right now, his plan this year is probably to go undefeated and win the national championship. He'll probably tell you that. But I think, as we know, there's things that you're going to need to learn, and you're going to have a lot of challenges this year, and some things that are a little bit different than what you expected. But as long as you grow through them, which I think he will, because he's a great competitor, then he's going to put himself in a position to have a great season. He needs to stay healthy too.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, next question will come from Marcus Trevino.
Hey, Coach.
Marcus?
How are you able to keep up with COVID protocols during practice in a sport that has such close contact?
Like I said, you just, it's an odd year that I think your coaching and your coaching staff has got to stay up, has to stay up and keep moving forward. And, it's challenging. I mean, I've never had these kind of challenges that I've faced in the future, in my 29th, 30th year, whatever it is. But, you don't expect to have these challenges, and all of a sudden you have a lot of scenarios that you need to work out and try to work them out in the best way and make sure that we maintain the idea to keep our student athletes healthy. I'll just say that practice a little earlier. You do some things that you look back on and going, I wish I would have did something a little bit different. But I think everybody dealing with this COVID issue is dealing with the same thing. And I think the important thing is just stay motivated during it, knowing that there's going to be better times, and we just need to get to them and make sure that you're able to put a healthy team on the mat.
Thanks, Coach. The final question for Coach Smith will come from Adam Engel. Go ahead, Adam.
Coach, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, so last night I talked to Trevor on the phone, and he said he's been really good friends with AJ, Dustin, and Doucette for a while, and he was actually super close to committing to another school before those guys and you guys reached out to him to recruit. Can you just talk a little bit about Trevor's recruiting process and the bond that those guys have?
Well, you find that some student athletes have a real level of drive to be successful, and it rubs off on other people. Or you want to surround yourself with the same type of athlete. And I think that those guys bonded together because they were similar. They all wanted to win. They all wanted to be great. They're all good students. And so it's just natural for those guys to come together, even though they live in different parts of the country. They're going to some of the same big events that wrestlers like them do. So it's been a good process for us. And, we saw that process early in their career, the connection between them all. And it was an important part of our recruiting as we went into it, so, it's just, it's good to see people that love what they're doing. And these guys love wrestling, and that's what's going to make them great wrestlers.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
All right, looks like there's no more questions for Coach. So
Yeah, let me just say one thing in closing, on our schedule is, we're definitely having a season, and I think what's real important is that we recognize that we have up to 20 guys that can, every guy on my team can wrestle that's not going to lose a year. So you're going to see a lot of people out on the mat, likely in some of our dual meets, and we have several weights that still are undecided, and we can't really name a particular person at a particular weight right now. So that's good, so I'm just looking forward to the month of December, getting ourselves ready for the start on January 10th.
Coach, it looks like we have one more question from Jason Almquist.
Yeah, just real quick, John. Have you been told at all what limitations will be like for attendance for those home days?
Well, it's the same. It's the same for basketball. It's the same. I think maybe our setup. Hopefully that it's a little bit different than what you see in basketball. Of course, you're only going to see us 4 times at home. So I can't imagine them not being willing to put the work in, but our teams don't need to be out on the floor because we're not substituting anyone into the game or those type of situations. So I sure would like to try to maximize, from a safety standpoint, and get as many fans as we can historically on the floor. We've had some great donors that are on the floor, and I hope they can remain there.
All right, thanks.
You bet, guys.
All right, Travis Whittlake will be up next. If you have a question for Travis, click the raise hand button and we'll get to you. Okay. Jason Elmquist, you can go ahead and start.
How you been?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Well, first off, I haven't gotten to talk to you since the Big 12 championships. Um, just for you personally, how your first at the national championships as a wrestler to compete in front of your family and friends was taken from you?
Yeah, it was, I mean, extremely unexpected. The brackets were already out. I had a really good draw. I was the number 4 seed going to the tournament. I had big goals of going and wrestling there. I felt like I had a good season, performed well. Um, had a really good Big 12 tournament, performed well there. And I feel like I was on a roll. And then it was kind of like a slap in the face, just like, they dropped that bomb on us kind of right there at the end, just a couple days before we were about to leave to go to nationals. And so, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for the whole team, especially the seniors. And then later on when we found out that we, at the time, we weren't going to get the year back, then that was even more heartbreaking. So I mean, it wasn't anything good, but just got to move on.
How I guess at the time, do you feel it was almost kind of how did it impact you, the fact that you feel that you were maybe peaking at the right time? I mean, you were obviously you'd had a great season, but it felt like you were starting to really take it to the next level there late in the season.
Yeah. No, I really felt like I was starting to perform very well. I was getting very comfortable at my weight. My weight was under control. I was making weight easy at that point in time. And so it was, yeah, I was on my way to peaking. John explains to us all the time that peaking is a state of mind. He tells us that, going into a competition, that if you want to peak, that you gotta say to yourself, you're gonna wrestle the best you've ever wrestled in your life right now, right here. And so, I think I had kind of that mindset going into Big 12s, and I was looking to carry it on to NCAAs. And I was ready. I was ready. I was definitely ready. It was going to be an exciting experience. And like I said, everything was coming together perfect. The draw was good. The bracket was good for me. My weight was good. I was training hard. My conditioning was good. I could wrestle a full match. I was getting turns on top. I was getting takedowns with my feet, 3 or 4 takedowns a match. I was getting riding time. And so everything was coming together perfect.
Now, when I talked with you and your dad last year, obviously he tried to get to every single match that he could a year ago. How much is COVID adjusting those plans? I'm sure that's something that he was going to plan on doing this year as well, if there wasn't a pandemic ongoing.
Yeah. No, he's bummed out. My whole family's bummed out based of what's going on right now, and we haven't started the season yet. We haven't had any matches, any competition, so everybody's pretty devastated about it. Obviously, because they want to see us perform. But when our competitions do start, when our duels do start, he's going to try to make it to everyone. Still, I know he will. He's planning on coming out. I don't think anything's going to stop him. So, it'll be exciting. I'll be excited to see him.
Is he going to try to do anything special to try to avoid the pandemic, like drive cross country? Or is he still going to try?
No, he'll still fly.
Okay.
He's pretty stubborn. He won't worry about it.
All right. Appreciate it, Travis.
Yeah.
All right, your next question will come from Dean Rule of the O'Colly. Go ahead, Dean.
Hey Travis, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So coming from a small town in Oregon, how did you get interested in wrestling? Kind of what did that journey look like? How did it start?
So my dad he grew up wrestling all through middle school and high school, and then I turned 4 years old, and he was the head coach at the mat club in my town, and so he basically put me in the mat club, and at 4 years old, and I started from there. Kind of took off with it. I picked it up quick, and it just became something that got more and more serious every year. obviously I was getting better and better. And then just I kind of took off with it. Started traveling across the country, going to big national tournaments. Even as a kid, in 2008, I was 8 years old. Is when I went and won my first big national competition. And so from that point on, it just kind of got more serious. I started wrestling freestyle, I started wrestling Greco, and that followed into high school where I was going across the country. I was on multiple all-star dual teams. And then obviously I was going to Fargo every year, wrestled who's number one. And so that's kind of how my journey got started. My dad got me into it and I took off with it, and then here I am.
What's the wrestling culture like in Oregon compared to Oklahoma?
Oh, it's way different. Oregon, they don't really care about it too much. They're not very fond of it.
I gotcha.
It's just not a big place where there's not a ton of high level wrestlers coming out of Oregon. Just kind of that Pacific Northwest. But there's always a few individuals. But in Oklahoma, they care about wrestling. There's lots of fans that want to come watch. Even when I was in high school, we'd have duels. We wouldn't have very many people show up at all at my high school duels. So, and we had a really good team. We were the number one team in the state at the time, and people still didn't really want to watch. But, Oklahoma's a lot different. It's a different attitude about wrestling. There's a different respect for wrestling, I think. And so, it was just a place where I needed to be, an atmosphere I needed to be around.
I've gotcha. Kind of outside of wrestling, what'd you like to do in Coos Bay?
Grew up hunting and fishing. Mostly I was always bow hunting. We have a lot of elk. We have a lot of deer. And then I was all the way on the west side. I'm like right on the Pacific Ocean. And so salmon fishing is a huge industry where I'm at. Tuna. And so there's always something to do. Those are my other hobbies. And then I grew up on a ranch, and so we were always doing something with cattle and dealing with the animals, taking care of the ranch.
Can you kind of talk just a little bit about your recruitment? If somebody had told you 5 years ago you're going to be living in Stillwater, Oklahoma right now, what would you say to them?
5 years ago, I probably would have told them that I was going to be going to Oregon State, be living in Corvallis. 3 years ago, if you asked me that, I probably would have told you I was going to be at Penn State. Some know this, some don't. I committed to Penn State first. And then I ended up switching and coming here. Just the recruitment process was pretty stressful, but it was also very humbling. It was awesome. I got to talk to tons and tons of coaches across the country who I never thought I'd get to talk to. I had a lot of coaches calling me, a lot of schools calling me. And then I committed early to Penn State. And so, but Oklahoma State didn't really stop recruiting me. Most of the other schools dropped off. Oklahoma State stayed on me pretty hard. I really had no interest, but I ended up coming on a visit to Stillwater, and I fell in love with it. John gave me a good sales pitch. It was good. He's quite the salesman. So, I fell in love with the place, decided that it was the best fit for me.
And then just lastly, you're coming off a really solid season. What's the personal goal this year?
Win a national title. Same thing as last year. That was my goal last year. And so, it's the same thing. It's a weird year, weird time that we're going through, but we got to stay optimistic. I got to stay optimistic. We got to stay focused on getting better. And so that's what I'm doing every day, trying to just, I want to pick up where I left off last year, and so I felt like I ended on a good note last year, ended it in a good place. And I'd like to pick up on that at the beginning of the season this year and then end in an even better spot.
I gotcha. Hey, thank you, Travis. I appreciate you taking the time in. You have a good one.
You too.
All right, last couple questions for Travis. Adam Engel, go ahead.
Travis, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, so last night I talked to Trevor Master Giovanni, and he kind of had a similar story. He said he almost was committed to another school, but then AJ, Dustin, and Doucette, who said they've actually been friends for a while, and
Yeah.
they called him up, and he said, oh, Oklahoma, it's a little far. Kind of want to stay in the Northeast, but then he told me he went on the visit and he fell in love with Stillwater.
Mhm.
So I mean, why? I mean, what makes Stillwater so magical?
I think it's just, like I already talked about before, the wrestling atmosphere. Not that, I mean, in the Northeast, the wrestling atmosphere and the crowds that come to the duels and everything, they're big too. Wrestling's big over there, but I think still, we got a lot of good things here. We got a lot of history to do with the program, tons of tradition. We got 34 national titles, and so it's and then you got John Smith as your head coach. It's hard to beat, hard to beat a place like this. We get tons of fans that are duels. We got the Wrestling Hall of Fame that's just right here next to Gallagher. We got our Hall of Fame in Gallagher where you see tons and tons of history. You see history all about John's career and what he did, and you got history over the course of the 2005 team and all their national titles and all their winnings. And so I think that just the atmosphere of the fans, and then the tradition behind Stillwater is what attracts wrestlers to it.
Thanks. And then one last question. So, as an older teammate in the wrestling room, can you sense a special bond, a special bond in this freshman class?
Oh, for sure. This freshman class they're legit. They're pretty good. They're a good class. They're a better class than what we've had in a while, I think, as a whole. There's not just two good guys in that whole class. The whole class is good. There's not just a few. So they're gonna be ready. They're gonna be ready quick. If they're not ready right now, they'll be ready by the end of the season to step in the lineup. So it's looking good for that recruitment class. It was exciting when all those guys committed, and we got more good guys committing. Jordan Williams just committed, and so we got a really good next couple years coming up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, final question will come from Marcus Trevino.
Hey Travis, what are the differences in practice this year with the pandemic going on compared to your previous years here?
We had a really long preseason. Obviously, nothing was mandatory before October. We couldn't start official practice till October, but we were definitely getting in the room voluntarily. Our guys we had a long break. Season got canceled, NCAAs got canceled, and we were, we all pretty much went back home, and we were quarantined for a while, a couple months. We were off the mat. Nobody was really, doing a whole lot. And so when we got back to Stillwater, we wanted to get on the mat. We were excited. We missed it. And so, like I said, preseason was long. It was hard. Got a lot of good conditioning. And I think we just focused on, John really helped us focus on building our endurance back up after a long break, a couple months off. And then, obviously getting our weight back down, getting our weight back in check for the upcoming season. But as far as right now, that was all a couple months ago. Right now, it's pretty much the same. We're grinding just like any other year. It's not a whole lot different. We're getting ready as if we were wrestling right now. And so, we're treating it about the same. We're staying optimistic about everything.
So have there been any adjustments since you guys are right on top of each other, breathing on each other, I assume?
Mm-hmm. There hasn't been a ton of adjustments. I mean, obviously we all wear a mask up into the room, and then we wear a mask when we leave. And anytime we're in the locker room or anywhere in our arena, we're always wearing a mask. Obviously trying to stay next to people, stay at home with your roommates, stay next to people that we're normally around, try not to go around any new people. you know, staying away from public places. But and John's been preaching to us to, you know, keep our health safe and you know, make sure that we're keeping our numbers down on the cases. So other than that, you know, when it's practice time, we can pull our mask off and get after it. But we're pretty much staying with our same drill partner every day and keeping contact pretty minimum. As
Who's
far as-
your drill partner?
my drill partner right now, I've been going with, in the preseason, I went with Wyatt Sheets a lot. And then right now I'm with Jalen Harper a lot. Dustin Plot a little bit.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, is there anything you'd like to say, Travis, just going away, or did we cover everything? Like if there's nothing to say, you don't have to say anything, but if
Good.
you have anything you want to say.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Travis.
Travis.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Thanks,
Hey,
Reed.
thanks, Reed. Thank you.